Welcome to Keeping It Realty.
Welcome back to Keeping It Realty. I'm your host, Martha Smith.
And I'm your co-host, Natalia Parentoni.
And today we're breaking down the difference between a listing agent and a buyer's agent.
Okay, so we'll explain who does what and what each role consists of.
Right. We'll also get into why sellers usually cover the buyer agent's commission and why that makes sense in today's market.
Good stuff. So let's get right into it.
So first, what's a listing agent's job?
What is it?
Right? The listing agent they sell the house, they list it, they prepare the home and market it, they set the list price based on the comps, they host open houses, brokers opens, they negotiate on behalf of the seller,
Right.
and they they help coordinate repairs, right? They basically just manage the whole deal until close.
Right. And so now let's talk about the buyer's agent's job, right?
Okay.
So they represent the buyer. They help getting pre-approved.
Right.
Understanding the financing also, obviously, with the lender. They find the homes. They go out to showings. They write the offers. They negotiate terms. They coordinate inspections and appraisals. And they also advocate the buyer until the closing.
Thank you. Very
You're welcome.
good. Yeah. So now that we understand what a listing agent is and what a buyer's agent is, why would the seller pay for a buyer's agent? Let's break down the history of how it works, right?
Right.
So when a buyer's agent is working with a buyer and they find a house that they like, they present an offer. And in this offer is going to be the buyer's terms. The buyer's terms are going to be they want to offer this much for the house. They want the seller to help with these costs. And they want the seller to cover their agent's commission as part of this offer.
And so then there's also the buyer representation agreement.
Right. Can you go into what that is? Or you
Yeah,
want me to
so
explain?
once you have a buyer or somebody that's interested in purchasing a home, you have to explain to them that we have to have an agreement as far as your commission, right? Whatever X number it is that you want to agree to.
And your
before,
duties.
Right, and our duties. Like,
Right.
what are we going to do with that commission number that they're going to give us, right? So are we going to go out to show them 50 homes, right? Or whatever the case may be with the contracts.
Right.
We'll help you with the inspections. We'll help you with the appraisal, the whole process, breaking down with them.
So the process of having a buyer-broker agreement is that the buyer is aware that this is how much the agent charges for the services.
Correct.
The buyer may need assistance to cover this, and that's why it would make sense for a seller to cover it when they're submitting their offer. So let's talk about what's changing in today's market, right? Buyers may have to pay some of their buyer agent commission. As before, the seller always covered the commission. Can you explain how the buyer may be responsible to pay some of it and the seller pay another portion?
Yeah, so whatever you agree with the buyer at the beginning of it, you also want to let them know and let them aware that if the seller does not give you that number, X amount of number that you have agreed with us in the beginning as the agent, then they are liable for what they owe you or say, yeah, go ahead.
So in a perfect scenario, the offer goes in, the seller agrees to some of the terms, right? You negotiate and they agree to pay this amount. There may be a small portion that the buyer may still be responsible to pay the agent.
And if they're okay with that.
Right. Let's talk about how agents work together.
Yes. So agents should always collaborate. I think that that's huge because you want to get this deal closed, right? We're both working together. How can we make it happen? What does your client want and what does my client want to get to the middle of it and just make it
happen for everybody?
Correct.
What makes a smooth deal in your opinion?
Communication.
Good communication is key.
Good communication, mutual respect, fairness, and also skills and experience.
Absolutely. If you have an agent that doesn't have the skills or the experience to negotiate on your behalf and get you the best price for the home, then you're missing out.
Correct. So what happens when either side drops the ball?
Oh, okay. So if either side drops the ball, it may be that one of the agents has to carry the heavier load.
Yep.
Or it may be that you miss out on an opportunity because the agent that's actually doing the work is able to negotiate better deals, get more things done for their client. And worse, we could lose the deal altogether when an agent drops the ball.
But within that, like when it drops the ball, like just make sure that sometimes you can lose off your commission if there was like a mistake or something.
That's a
where
good
like,
point.
hey, I'll give up a commission point, whatever it is, to make the deal work. You know, just think of being creative. I think it's huge in this part of making every little thing possible so it doesn't come through. You know, like you've worked so hard for that.
To get our clients what they want. Ultimately, that's the... Okay. Can a listing agent also be the buyer's agent?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no, because Florida has 3 types of representation.
Okay.
Transaction broker, single agent, and no brokerage representation.
Correct.
So can you explain to us a little bit of all 3?
Yes. So briefly, without getting into too much details, a transaction broker is the default relationship in Florida. This is the agent's responsibility is always to deal honestly and fairly, to disclose all known materials and facts, right? But without getting into too much details about what the duties are, this offers a limited responsibility. So we are able to work with both the buyer and the seller on a deal, which we call, double ending it. You represent both buyers. Obviously, you have to, keep the buyer's best interest at heart. You have to keep the seller's best. So it could get a little complicated.
Yeah.
The next representation would be a single agent representation. And what that is, it's all the same duties from the transaction broker, except here you owe your client full confidentiality. You cannot work with the buyer or the other person, the seller, on the deal. You can only represent your client, one side, and that's it. And then last, we have the no brokerage relationship. And that is used when someone doesn't necessarily want to hire a realtor, but they need some assistance with filling out some papers. Maybe they want to list a property as is, and they just need, a realtor to charge them a flat fee to upload it to, the MLS or to help with disclosures, whatever the case may be. So there's no loyalty. The agent doesn't negotiate on your behalf. You just pay a flat fee.
So in Florida, we are transaction brokers by default, unless the client specifies they want otherwise. So
That's
yes,
correct.
Yes and no.
So that's the answer. Yes and no. We can represent both. Yes and no. Okay.
So what if I'm listing your house and an unrepresented buyer wants to buy the home?
Great question. So that everybody understands how it works. Let's say I represent the seller and I have a buyer that really wants to buy the house and they don't have an agent. I would then come back to my seller and let them know the situation, let them know that there is a buyer that's interested. They want me to represent them. I will have limited ability to be able to give them information, and I'm going to have to negotiate on behalf of the buyer. I personally don't like to do it because just imagine trying to negotiate with somebody when you already know what their bottom line is. It's
a headache.
It's a headache. It's a lot of work. It's sticky, and I rather just refer it to somebody else. I have double-ended a deal before, and my experience taught me, it went as perfect as it could go. Everybody was on the same page. They knew I had limited. I negotiated on behalf of the buyer. It was just a lot. It wasn't a house or anything like that. But it just gets sticky. I feel like I can't really negotiate as hard for my buyer because I represent my seller.
So and I can't
really get my seller the most amount of money because I'm also representing the buyer. So it's just, as long as everybody knows what's going on, it's fine, it's acceptable, but I personally rather represent one side. What about you?
I haven't really done both.
No?
No, I think it would have, like you said, I feel like just sticking to one side and just going full force and just fighting for your client would be the best.
Absolutely. All right, so let's share some stories. Can you tell us about an experience that you had with an agent where the agent was pleasant to work with?
I love those.
Yeah,
just because
a nice story.
Yeah, the realtor that answered the phone.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So I just feel like the communication was there. Like, hey, he was being honest, transparent, letting me know what the client wants, right? And where my client is. And then we're just trying to fix it, getting to the point where it's like, okay, we're here, let's negotiate it, let's get it closed. It's just communication, I feel, and be honest.
The common goal, right?
The common goal.
The way you got to think about it is the listing agent wants to get the best deal for their seller and the buyer's agent wants to get the best deal for their buyers. And how do we get both people as close to what they want as possible?
So I think we pretty much covered it, right? So let's get to do a little rapid fire. Agent edition.
All right. Agent, it's Natalia and Martha edition because it's just us today.
Oh, yeah, it's just us.
Yeah. All right.
Harder to negotiate with, buyer or seller?
I think in today's market, the buyer, because sellers are working with us. They're giving us closing costs. They're being reasonable with the price. So the buyers sometimes want
so much.
They want so much. They want to drop the house, so much. And it's almost disrespectful to present this offer.
And you
have to do it. Yeah, we work for you. So we're going to do what you want. But, it's sometimes it could be as like a disrespect if you're dropping $100,000 on a house that is worth, what is listed at. Okay, best part about being a listing agent.
The best part? Not having to drive all over the town.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, saving gas.
Pretty nice. They call you. Hey, can I show your house? Yep,
yes,
go show it.
Sure. Let me give you the code real quick. Best part of be working with buyers.
The best part about working with buyers, I would say, is when you find the house that they want, you can tell right away. They start calling their family, their eyes light up. They start picturing themselves living in this house. This is going to be so-and-so's room.
Can I go see it again and again? Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, they want to see it again. And they love it. That's the best part. Yeah.
And asking many questions. That's when you know.
Yeah.
Oh, craziest thing a client ever asked for?
The craziest thing, like I said, right now, the craziest thing they're asking for sometimes is just dropping the price way too much. Even after I show them the comps and I'm like, we could go this low, but I wouldn't recommend going this low and that. What about you?
Yeah, just low ball offers. I think that's a pretty big one.
All right. So here's our final thoughts. It's important when you choose whether you're buying or selling, it's important to choose an agent that works for you, that understands you, and that's going to fight for you.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to interview agents. You don't have to stick with the first one you meet. Like, really do your research. Look them up. Have they closed? What did they do to present your house?
Yeah, that's for sure. If you enjoyed this podcast or have any questions, let us know in the comments.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, help us reach more people by sharing this episode.
Whether you're buying, selling, or just curious about real estate, we hope you found this episode useful. You can reach us at keepingitrealty@gmail.com.
And if you're looking for an agent, we got you covered. See you next time on Keeping It Realty. Thank you all for tuning into our podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at keepingitreal_T and share this episode with all your friends.
If you guys have any questions and topics that you guys would like for us for future episodes, let us know. Shoot us a message. We would love to hear from you guys.
See you next time on Keeping It Realty.